Hello, and you are very welcome back to the Social Media News Show. I know it's Thursday and it's not Tuesday, but anyway, we couldn't show up on Tuesday, so we're here today. As always, I'm joined by Andy Lambert, but he's got a new job title and he's product marketing at Adobe because, of course, there was a business shift a couple of months ago into Adobe, and Andy can explain that. And also today, it's our last episode. It is exactly 1 year and 1 day since Andy and I started this show when we were still kind of in the midst of COVID, right? And not that we had extra time on our hands, but we wanted to do something just a little bit more to add value. Things have changed on your side, but you're still going to be on LinkedIn doing your monthly social media news updates. But I just want to thank you for doing this with me over the past 12 months. I've loved learning from you and also sharing it with my audience. So this is the last one, and what a way to finish, because we got to talk about Mr. Musk, right? At some
We will do. We definitely will. Yeah, never a dull moment in the world of social. And yeah, thank you for all the wonderful things you just said. And yes, we'll be continuing these updates. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, so yeah, Andy Lambert on LinkedIn, you'll find me, and I'll be continuing to do monthly shows, but with under an Adobe guise. So yeah, our business that we founded 6 years ago, Content Cal, got bought by Adobe in December. So we're just going through the transition. So lots of exciting updates to come as well. So yeah, anyway, that's enough about me personally, and let's make this more about you. So let's go ahead and start going straight into the slides, and let's go through it. Yeah, as per usual, as I always say at the start of these sessions, there's a lot of information coming your way over the next, I would say, 40 minutes, really. Feel free to fire in any questions, but also what I don't want you to come away from this session is feeling overwhelmed, because there's a lot of stuff going on. I'll flag the stuff that could be relevant for you right now, but I'll also tell you the stuff that is more of an FYI for you just to kind of think about for the future. Don't feel that you need to take action on everything. You don't need to be everywhere, because focus is the name of the game. Knowing where your audience are, the story you want to tell, and then focusing on that. The session really is about giving you broader context around everything that's happening in the world of social. It changes fast. So ideally, this session is to help you feel empowered with all of the information around everything that's happening in the world of social. I've already said hello. You already know who I am. Let's just focus on the three things that we've come here to talk about. As per usual, we're going to look at some trends, what we're seeing evolve in the market, more points of interest. We'll look at data that can help inform our strategies. We've got some interesting analysis on the amount of hashtags we should use on Instagram, and also the times that we should be posting across all of the social platforms. So some really good insights to help inform our strategies. And then feature updates, which is the things that we have access to right now to start improving the impact of our content, or giving us some other options as to what we can do with our strategies. Start with some trends. And let's start with something that none of us actually needed, was a new social media platform. So, but this one has seemed to have broken through. And while social media platforms are pretty much started every other week, you don't hear about most of them because they kind of fizzle out pretty quickly. This one, like Clubhouse did in early 2020, it's kind of broken through. This was founded in France and it's gathering traction in Europe and now the US. The idea of this, and it's like there's two interesting concepts I want to flag here. Number one, the idea of this app is all about authenticity. Just one single time, every single day, you get 2 minutes to share what you're up to through a video or an image. So it's called Be Real for a reason. It's about authenticity. It's about reflecting who you are and what you're doing in that given moment. No time to put lipstick on, no time to get the ring light out, no time to try and like make our background look better than it actually is. It is a real picture into our lives. So I think that authenticity is really catching on, specifically in Gen Z at the moment. And there's also another dimension that's worthwhile thinking about, and it's about scarcity. Only once a day are you able to use this app. It's the antithesis of the endless scroll on TikTok, for example. Only once a day do you get to check in with what your friends are doing, and then you get back to your normal lives. And it's that scarcity, really, and that's a psychological phenomenon that typically makes people gravitate towards something. When you can't get that much of it, you tend to want more of it, right? And it's a fantastic tactic that was used to great effect in Clubhouse's early days, where you had to get an invite to join. As soon as they removed the kind of exclusivity, then you could immediately track the downfall of Clubhouse. Be Real is leaning into that. It's also the reason that Wordle as an app performed so darn well, because you could only do one a day. That scarcity, exclusivity, drives a lot of usage, and as a result, Be Reals being having a benefit from those same psychological effects. So, really interesting. Authenticity, scarcity. Let's keep an eye on that. I don't think no one needs to jump on it. No, we don't need to do anything with it right now. But you might want to explore it and have a look at it. But yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Then want to call out some data that I saw around user-generated content, otherwise known as UGC, particularly pertaining to ads. And I think this calls on the authenticity piece we were just talking about, where UGC ads, basically ads that involve real people using a product, basically a real individual that is trustworthy, authentic, etc. They now outperform conventional ads on the same topic by 20 to 50%. So I think it's a pretty obvious statement, but there's a new paradigm for how brands should be advertising on social, where that paradigm is about more native advertising. And you'll see this on TikTok. If you spend any time on TikTok, you'll see the ads on TikTok are very what we'd class as native. So they feel like content on the platform. Whereas, you might be scrolling through Insta and ads feel like ads. They're jarring. They don't sit next to all of the other content that you're consuming. That's because marketers mostly are pretty lazy. And two is that they are sometimes culturally disconnected from the audience they're trying to serve. So that's why user-generated content is super powerful, helps you maintain that level of relevance, helps build trust. As a result, UGC videos deliver 12 times more engagement, apparently. And I think this is the other interesting dimension to this as well, because creating culturally relevant ads that sit like seamlessly within a feed on Instagram or TikTok, it's really hard to do. You have to shift your mind out of like basic advertising 101, because you have to create entertainment value content, because that's super hard to do. As a result, we're seeing 66% of brands increasing budgets for creator campaigns, basically working with those creators and those communities to get their message into them rather than just running ads. And increasingly, I think we're going to see a shift that way, because it's going to become increasingly hard for advertisers to get the right cut through without just having to scroll past, because people switch off to ads, people switch on to culturally relevant content where a product has a natural fit within an audience and a narrative. So I thought that was kind of some interesting analysis, helps us rethink our ad strategies a little bit. Snapchat, we don't talk about it that much, is growing faster than any other social platforms in percentile terms at the moment. So you can see the daily active user growth. In fact, using this data, they are 30% bigger than Twitter currently. So considering how much airtime Twitter gets, the fact that Snapchat's 33% bigger, it doesn't really get much airtime in the media at all. But Snapchat's audience is very specific. It's 13 to 18-year-olds. They're the youngest. I think their age graph and the demographic is the most Gen Z and younger audience out of all of the other platforms. So you need to think carefully whether it fits your right demographic mix, but they have a very clear role to play if that's the kind of audience you want to target. And of course, TikTok still tops most of the charts, right? So TikTok, top of all of app downloads globally, yet again. So charting its future growth. And also, they are top of the monetization charts. And this stat blew my mind, actually, in that the last 3 months, TikTok users have spent 840 million on the platform. But that is nothing to do with ads. Ad revenue is outside of this. Ad revenue is much bigger than this. But in the last 3 months, 840 million has been spent from users tipping creators. Purely, there's no requirement for someone to tip someone or pay anyone any money, but users are feeling compelled to do it, that they follow a creator, they love the content, and they just want to contribute. And that shows a really interesting shift. It shows that people are starting to get willing to pay for content, which is great. But I think the thing that means something quite important for us as organizations that might want to spread our message on social media platforms, what this means to us is that if creators are starting to make real money and significant money from these platforms, naturally they'll spend more time creating content on those platforms. They'll spend more time cultivating an audience, a community on those platforms. And as a result, that gives us more opportunities as brands, as organizations, to work with those niche communities that are being created. So those creators, those ones that really lead the narrative of a community, they're the ones that have the opportunity to spread our organizational message. Great opportunity for us to work with those. Like we were talking just a couple of slides ago, where 66% of brands are increasing their creator campaigns. And it's for this precise reason. Creators are investing increasing time building content on TikTok specifically because they're making proper money. They're able to build a lifestyle out of content creating. And that is a really interesting dynamic shift. And we're starting to see social being less fueled by ads, more fueled by creators and their communities. Now, that is a really positive news story as far as I'm concerned. But like the other dimension to TikTok as well is that the user engagement keeps on going up, which is the amount of time people are spending on the platform. Once again, this is global data, but I thought this was really stark to look at it in this way, where you're looking at Instagram that has on average 9 hours per month, or 8 hours rather per month, people using the platform. It's only 25% of the time that people are spending on TikTok. So as a result, because a very frequent question I get asked is like, oh, why is my Instagram engagement not going up? Why is my reach diminishing? The reach will always diminish if people are not spending more time on the platform, yet more people are coming to the platform. Naturally, that just means less opportunity for content to surface. Where if you look at TikTok, for example, and don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting everyone kills off all their other social platforms and focus on TikTok, but the data is really stark in the sense that that's why TikTok organic reach is so darn good. I have 200 followers and I get 4,000 to 5,000 video views. It's just unheard of on the other platforms. And the reason is simple. The reason is simple because there's still about 50% less creators on TikTok versus the other platforms. And people are spending 4 times the amount of time on average on the platform. That means there is a lot more opportunity for content to be surfaced. It's basically like posting on Facebook back in 2011, 2012, right? Reach was incredible. And that's the kind of phase of the journey that we're at in TikTok. So it's definitely worthwhile considering. And the fact that TikTok's also projected to be 25% of the whole social media market by 2024. Now if that prediction plays out, that is utterly massive. And it gets to a point where I'm not one to tell anyone that they should be on a platform, but I think at this point we're remiss not to be on TikTok. It is where things are headed, to be honest. So they are your trends that you might want to think about. Let's look at some data which can help inform our strategy. So we're going to touch on this. There's a lot of stats on this slide, so we're going to touch on the most important bits, which is this is your total number of social media users as of this week. So 4.6 billion monthly active users. So this is people that log in at least once a month, about 59% of the world's population. And if you look at year-on-year change here, if you look at how social media has grown over the last year, this growth rate has slowed. So in the last 2 years, it was 10% and then 12% growth before that. It's a expected behavior, right? Because the world isn't social media adoption growth is quicker than the growth of our population, right? So we're nearly at a point of max saturation of social media users, where nearly every single person across the planet that has access to either a mobile phone or the internet is on social media. So we'll expect to see the year-on-year growth start to decrease, but we're now at a point where social media is literally ubiquitous across demographics, across geographies, and really there's never been anything like that connects us all. Of course, the growth of these users then gets split across multiple platforms. And as part of this data, which was run by Hootsuite and Global Web Index, as part of the interviews they were conducting across a couple of 100,000 people, they were talking about what is the main purpose of you going to these platforms. I thought this represented some really interesting data, and there's quite a lot of things on this slide. So I'm going to simplify it and focus purely on these 3 columns here, because these are the ones that are most relevant for our use case of creating social media content to raise awareness of our causes, our businesses, etc. So here we want to look at what are the platforms that people are going to address or meet this certain need. So looking at funny or entertaining content, That's the primary use of things like TikTok and Reddit. I'll call out TikTok here, and that's really the thing that separates brands that get TikTok and those that don't. Because naturally, if people are going towards TikTok purely for entertainment value content, that raises the bar a little bit for how we think about content, particularly like ads as well, like we were talking about before. Follow or research brands and products. That is Pinterest's primary purpose. So Pinterest is really the one where people go to research those products and brands. We've spoken about this before. Also Instagram as well. Products and brands is very heavy on Instagram. It's an expected behavior. We'll talk a little bit more around what Instagram are doing to support brands as well. And then keeping up with news and current events, where that kind of breaks. So yeah, I think across all of the platforms, that's fairly equal, but it's LinkedIn and Twitter's primary purpose. This is what the highlighting means. This is what people would choose as a majority, the reason they would go to this platform. So yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter are the ones for that. So let's look at some more very specific data then. Let's look at both hashtags and the best times to post, which can help us optimize our content. Now, the number of hashtags to use on Instagram is often a source of very active debate, shall we say. And also Instagram came out recently saying that how many hashtags we include in our posts doesn't impact the reach and performance of our content, which is just a big claim, that is. So the team at Social Insider went ahead and analyzed 75 million Instagram posts, so pretty statistically significant, to look at how many hashtags or how hashtags and how many hashtags specifically impact engagement and growth of content. So as a result, long story short, 3 to 4 is the number of hashtags that marginally got the best engagement rate. So 3 to 4 hashtags seems to be the general guidance. But then if you start to cross-reference this data against the size of account, typically you'll see a kind of a clear trend. For those with smaller accounts under 10,000 followers, typically you're going to be somewhere around 3 to 4 or 5 to 6. So somewhere between 3 to 6 hashtags is where you should be. And typically engagement rate drops off, though, the bigger the account is, the more hashtags you include. So seemingly you'll need no more than 6 hashtags, according to this data, if your account is small. If your account is large, you should really think about making sure you don't include too many hashtags, because it starts to impact performance negatively. Best times to post. Let's look at the 4 networks. These times are in Central Standard Time, so we'll need to make adjustments accordingly for our own local time, wherever we are in the world. The nice thing about this data is that there's some real good consistencies across all of the platforms. So there's some good rules we can take. But my caveat to this is look at your own data too, because that's really where most of the goodness will be. This is general guidance, and it's good to kind of put a line in the sand. But ultimately don't hinge all of your strategy on this. You still look at your own data. But anyway, Facebook, it's all about weekdays. It's all about the mornings as well, 9 to 12. Mornings, weekdays on Facebook is the one. Similar story for Instagram, skews a little bit earlier, where peak engagement really is between 10 and 11, particularly with peak engagements on Thursdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. Twitter, exactly the same as Facebook, all about weekdays, all about mornings. And LinkedIn is actually a bit of a wider demographic graph, or engagement graph rather, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. across the weekdays. So there's a good spread of engagement actually. So you don't need to focus too heavily on posting in the morning, but peak engagement tends to happen on Wednesdays and Thursdays, of which you would see that as a trend across a lot of the other social platforms as well. So like I said, some good consistencies, fundamentally weekdays, fundamentally mornings, when later in the week, mid to late in the week is where that peak engagement typically happens. And the last bit of data I want to share with you is probably one of my favorite data slides that we've shared, which is your demographic information. Really important information to help you orientate your strategies to make sure you're focusing on the platforms that are frequented by your target demographic. There's a couple of takeaways from this. So YouTube is the most consistent in terms of it being used by the younger generation and the older ones. So it's the most equally split across all these different demographics. So YouTube really strong. I will talk more about YouTube later. And I still think YouTube isn't used enough and referenced enough or considered enough as part of a broader social media strategy. And increasingly, as we'll talk about in the feature updates, YouTube is getting more and more social media orientated. Instagram diminishes a little bit into the older demographic, as we'd expect. Facebook increases a little bit. You'll see TikTok drop off when we're talking about older demographics as well. And we'll also see Pinterest rise in importance dramatically into the older demographics, similar with LinkedIn. So it's quite nice to see that how we go see up and down related to these different target demographics. I think that's really useful for us reorientating or prioritizing, or maybe just reinforcing our current content strategies. So, feature updates. Right then, let's start with Meta. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's much we can do with this straight off the bat. But it's the only thing Meta have shipped in the last month. And I think predominantly this really does represent everything that they're about at the moment, which is about metaverse, about getting people into these digital virtual worlds and starting to transact in these virtual worlds. I don't think we need to do anything about this right now, but it's clearly going to be a direction of travel. Twitter, unsurprisingly, this is the first and top news story, which broke on Wednesday night, Tuesday night. So Elon Musk has bought Twitter for $44 billion. And there is a couple of schools of thought as to where it's going to go from here. The good news is, I would say, until October, there's going to be barely any changes because the deal won't complete until October. So the changes will be minimal by then. I think there's a noble ambition from Elon's perspective of encouraging or decreasing the censorship that exists on Twitter, encouraging more free speech. Free speech is a very thorny subject, which we won't get into now, but I think that will be challenging. There's also some good things that he will bring to Twitter. I expect bigger feature updates. Twitter is not going to be the poor cousin of social media platforms anymore. I think this is going to be a shot in the arm for Twitter, moving feature development quicker. And also, Elon Musk has a tendency to make the businesses that he's involved with work very well. And Twitter hasn't been working very well as a business, if we're really honest, since they went public about 7 years ago. So I think on balance, I feel confident. I would say quietly confident, but with an underpinning kind of concern, I would say, is where I sit with this right now. But anyway, let's get into the more specific feature updates on Twitter that we can do something with right now. So Twitter professional accounts are here. I would implore everyone to do this. So you can either class yourself as a business or creator, which basically gives you some more opportunities to represent your business organization in a more detailed way on your Twitter profile. It'll also mean there'll be more features coming specifically for those professional accounts soon. Twitter is adding an edit button. I mean, to be honest with you, this is the thing that has given Twitter most grief, and it's what people talk about all the time. I don't see the massive hoo-ha about it, to be honest. But yeah, either way, it's going to be coming, and it will be coming with a change log of all of the edits that have happened to a tweet, because of course, sometimes, Twitter and tweets in themselves are like moments in time, and we don't want to change the course of history. So there will be a log of every single change. So it's not like someone could, edit something to make their tweet seem suddenly better or worse than it was. So there is a historic track of that. New notifications for Twitter Spaces. Twitter Spaces continues to get promoted by Twitter. As you'll see, if you open the Twitter app, it's front and center. Twitter audio spaces are all about, it's just basically like Clubhouse. Great ways to facilitate deeper community connection, and they're continuing to promote it. So yeah, good opportunities there. Talking about promotion, Twitter has launched Quick Promote, which is just like Facebook boosting, gives you an opportunity to give some posts a bit of a shot in the arm to drive a bit more growth, follower growth, engagement, drive more video views, whatever it might be. Where if you've got a specific post that you really want people to see because there's a campaign you want to drive people towards, this could be a good thing to try. So LinkedIn, more detail. Actually, it's quite a lot have happened on LinkedIn, which is really encouraging because LinkedIn is kind of my favorite go-to platform. And I tend to find the updates they make to LinkedIn are some of the most simple, but some of the most effective, I would say. So firstly, there's more insight into who's viewed your profile. So this is good to make sure that you're appealing to the correct audience. If you're a creator, you're building your personal brand on LinkedIn, this can be super useful. They're giving more insight into profile performance, the content that's working well for you. This is particularly if you've changed your profile to a creator. So you'll notice now you can change your LinkedIn profile. You can change it from kind of standard as it is today to a creator profile, very similar to what Twitter are bringing out that we just spoke about. So what that does allow you to do is give you more insight to your content performance. So you can see the type of audience that your content's resonating with. You can see more detail around your overall performance. And also, if I direct your attention onto the right-hand side, you can see some much more detail in terms of your post-level performance. So how many impressions, how many interactions did it get, how many engagements, the demographics of the people reached. And that's super powerful. And I wish the other social platforms gave us that level of detail, because then we can understand not just the post that did really well from a vanity metric perspective, what got the most likes, etc. We can actually look at the post that what most deeply connected and resonated with the target audience that we're trying to serve. And that's super powerful information to help us learn from that and basically do more of that type of content. They're adding new prompts for cover videos. You might be familiar with these cover videos, and essentially really like humanizes your profile on LinkedIn. So if you're into building a bit of a profile for yourself for LinkedIn, I'd recommend doing this. And now they've got some little prompts now that help you create that right cover video, because, you know, going to camera for 20 seconds to talk about yourself is actually quite a hard thing to do, to be honest. So they've made it a bit easier. And they also have the ability now for you to feature your newsletter and gather subscriptions to that newsletter directly from your profile too. You'll remember from a couple of months back, we spoke about the LinkedIn newsletters and the fact that anyone can run a newsletter, and now businesses can run a newsletter too. So both company pages and personal profiles can run those newsletters, which is super powerful because it allows you to make sure that every single month the individuals that have subscribed to newsletter get that content in their inbox. Well, it's just like any other newsletter, but I think you need to use it quite cautiously, because naturally most organizations will have their own email database, etc. So you need to think about how that fits into part of your strategy. But I think overwhelmingly it's a positive update, because it allows another level and depth of engagement with your followers. Insta. So lots happening in the world of Insta, some creator focused changes. So this will be more for e-commerce orientated brands or brands with products to sell. So I'll touch on this quite quickly. So we can now tag products in any Instagram posts. So to make any post shoppable, if you will. So tag, you know, whatever it is that's in that photo, and then people can view those products and make purchases of those products. Super powerful for those that are working with a product-based business. Equally, we can now tag people in our content, not just tag those individuals in our photos like we've always been able to. We can actually tag them by their participation as well. So it gives us an opportunity to credit the individuals that have collaborated with us on this content, whether it's like the photographer or the set designer or whatever it might be, the musician. And then this guy on the right-hand side, this is Adam Mosseri. He's the head of Instagram. You should if you're big on Instagram, I would definitely recommend following him, because he's the one that will break these latest updates, basically ranking changes. And what that means is how much weight how much weight Instagram give to your content and how your content is surfaced. So whenever they come out and say, we're making some changes to ranking, if you're in social media and you're on Instagram, your ears should prick up at that point. And basically what they're doing is prioritizing original content. And I don't think anyone on this session, this is going to hugely affect, to be honest. And really what this is doing is trying to stop people repurposing others' content, i.e., taking your TikTok and putting them on Instagram Reels. That's a no-no, because that's going to kind of start to be really downranked. And equally, if you're like taking screenshots of tweets, for example, and putting those on Instagram, they're going to start to penalize that too. So they really want to focus on original content. They've also increased, and they've been doing a lot around this, but they've increased support for causes as well, for nonprofits, to allow you to create fundraisers, spread the word. So for any nonprofit business, yeah, super powerful. There are so many tools now on Instagram specifically around nonprofit and cause support. So I'd recommend checking that out. Also improve stories insights, specifically around numbers of accounts reached, so you can see how many people you're reaching with your stories, both out of your follower base and your new followers, or non-followers rather. So it's a nice way of you seeing what's the reach that you're achieving beyond your follower base. Making a little change to hashtag pages to focus more on Instagram Reels. You know, Reels is the name of the game of Instagram at the moment. You can see many more moves from Instagram to continually prioritize Reels. To be honest with you, I probably see it's going to be the case where Instagram's feed will start to look very like TikTok by the end of the year. They're making all of the moves to really prioritize Reels. They're certainly banging that drum enough, because they're adding more stuff to Reels, like editing tools for Reels. Actually, they're making it much easier now for us that are not video pros to go ahead and start creating Reels. So new editing tools, and TikTok's the same. It's got some really smart editing tools that basically put a lot of power into your hands in terms of making videos look really good. And Instagram have done the same too. They're also adding new ads onto Reels to help people monetize their content. Onto TikTok. GIFs have come to TikTok, so another way of getting some more depth and creativity on your content. Just an integration with Giphy. We all love a GIF, as we know. We all know Giphy, and now we can apply that onto our TikToks. Give us more opportunity for creativity, and that makes our content more fun. This is probably a little bit kind of out there, I would say, but something maybe to consider in future. So this is TikTok's Effect House. And this allows anyone to start building augmented reality into their content. Now, I think the future of content in general, so whilst I wouldn't recommend everyone needs to go ahead and do this right now, unless you're interested in it, there's a couple of things I want to call out here. One, the future of content is going to be much more participatory. So as technology evolves, you're going to see social content become less about, hey, this is a image, this is a video, like it and comment on it. That's kind of where we're at today, but we're starting to see this paradigm shift into where it's going tomorrow, which is much more, like I said, participatory. And what I mean by participatory is like remixes, for example, stitches or duets, which basically allows you to do like a take of someone's content, to do a version of it, to kind of riff on it, if you will. So that allows that as a theme, as a thing, really has created so much of that viral content that's got TikTok known, because it's another depth of engagement. So like you've done a video, someone else has kind of remixed it, someone else has kind of done a take on it. And that really is what engagement's going to look like moving forward. And the other thing that the other second element of like participation is around interaction. And that's where augmented reality filters are always really powerful, so that people can interact with the content in different ways, can put little filters on themselves, can try on glasses or whatever it might be. And that really is what the kind of next evolution of social looks like. And Snapchat were ahead of the curve of this straight out of the gate when they launched in 2013. But TikTok is now coming to TikTok, and this tool, like we were talking about video editing just a few moments ago, this tool helps you really makes augmented reality and bringing that into your content so much simpler. It's quite fun to have a play around with. So, but as I said, not critical right now. But as I was talking about like participation and interaction, they've launched interactive ads, which once again makes ads not feel like ads, they feel like entertainment value content. So here, like as you can see, this content here is like click to have a surprise. You can interact with these things and shop these products. It just feels much more native. It feels more interactive. It feels more participation driven. So you can start to see how things are moving. But once again, like don't feel the fact that, oh, I don't have augmented reality in my content, or I don't have, like, no one's doing remixes of my content. Don't worry, because this isn't the norm now, but you can just see the direction of travel. So it's something worthwhile bearing in mind. Also, talking about ads, TikTok have testing out search ads, which makes a whole heap of sense, just like Google search, really, because increasingly people are going to social to research brands, products, causes, organizations. They're going there increasingly, the younger demographics are anyway, and going to social rather than Google to search. So if that's the case, we want to make sure we're running search ads here to capture that intent at that point. So they're just testing it out at the moment, but I see that being a really powerful advertising surface. Onto YouTube, only a few updates to go through. But for me, this actually goes into what I'd probably class as the most important update out of everything that I've said so far. So on YouTube, they've added some better analytics into what people are searching on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube, click on analytics, go to research, and then searches across YouTube. This allows you to inquire on YouTube about what people are searching around your category. So like, let's say our category is content marketing, for example, right? So you type in the word content marketing, it will tell you all of the searches that people are doing related to that term, along with the volume. But the most important thing here is that it will tell you where your content gaps are. Basically, it will tell you where there is good user demand for something, but there's not enough content created to meet that demand. That is gold dust for us as content creators, right? Because we want to know what the unmet needs are. We want to know where those gaps are. And this tool helps surface those. Super powerful. TikTok, got it on the mind. YouTube is leaning onto Shorts promotion. So Shorts, as a reminder, is YouTube's competitor to TikTok. And at this point, they've generated about 5 trillion views across Shorts. It's now available to everyone, and they're increasing the promotion of it. So short form video is really where things are going, be it Reels, be it TikTok, be it Shorts. So it really helps us think about how we can cross-pollinate our content, our short form video, across these multiple different platforms to help drive reach. Because of course, these new features that these platforms are bringing in, whether it's Twitter audio spaces, whether it's shorts, that those platforms will prioritize those types of content because naturally they want to promote that as a content format, shorts in particular. Remixing is coming to shorts. I've already spoken about remixing, but this helps us in twofold. It helps us as content creators speed up our creative production because we could go to YouTube, look at any video that we think is relevant or interesting. We could press create here, which allows us either to take the audio from the video or do a cut of it, of a segment for that video. So people can take a segment of that video and then kind of film their reaction to it and film their own narrative to it. I think for me, that lowers the barrier of entry for content production when you're actually just giving your reaction to something else. So I think that's actually really powerful. I see, remixing becoming the new retweet, if you will, whereas retweet is just a case of like, oh, I like this, I'm going to retweet it to my followers. This takes it another level where you're like, I like this, and here's the reasons why. So I think that's where we should look at remixing from. So that's the first angle of like content creation. And then the second angle we should look at is about participation again. So how do we get our audience engaged in remixing our content? So you could think about challenges. You could think about, setting your audience tasks to do, right? So for example, like a packaging business, and you see things like this, probably irrelevant for the audience that are on this session, but hopefully it opens your mind. But like a packaging business could be showing about their packaging process and how quickly they can pack a box, for example, and ask people to remix that. Can you pack your box faster or whatever? And it's that kind of stuff that you see on TikTok where you see lots of people, like it brings out the creativity of the audience and it brings your audience into your content. And really that's the thing, that you make your audience the stars of your content. And that's the thing that really forms a community, right? Because typically social media, even though there's an element of interaction, it's kind of, most approaches are like, I create some content, I put it out there, it's kind of one to many. Whereas this involves a kind of more many to many type of interaction. So hopefully that makes a degree of sense. So on to the last 3 updates. Snapchat have integrated with YouTube. So if we're on Snapchat, we can simply take those YouTube videos we want to share, take them and have them as stickers in our snaps. So nice way of cross-pollinating our content across platforms. WhatsApp have launched communities. So interesting move because obviously it's a Meta-owned product. Meta also own Facebook and by extension Facebook groups. Whereas Facebook groups is all about people you don't know being in a group and groups being discoverable online. WhatsApp communities are private, so you can only invite people to those. It's the evolution of those WhatsApp group chats that we might have. I'm sure we've all got far too many of those going on our phone at any point. So it really kind of formalizes that into much more of a organization. And I think this can be super powerful for said communities because now it adds a lot more organization control, because anyone who runs a kind of WhatsApp group, it's an absolute pain in the backside to administer. this adds a lot more control around that. So that could be super powerful for certain organizations. And then Spotify, we all know that Spotify is a key place where podcasts get discovered and listened to. But they're now adding video podcasts as well. So if we're running a podcast and we have a video element to that as well, we can now share that on Spotify too, which just adds, another dimension to our reach. And with that, we have got through it all. 40 minutes, bang on. Wow, that's a rarity for me. So yeah, 6 takeaways. TikTok's growth continues, forecasted to be 25% of the social media ecosystem. I don't think we can ignore TikTok anymore. YouTube continues to be a really powerful and attractive component of the strategy. The search insights, super powerful. New remixing, shorts, the fact they got 2.5 billion monthly active users, second only to Facebook. The fact that it's the most broad reach in terms of demographic means YouTube's a really powerful component. Instagram is all about Reels. I've spoken about this. So increasingly video first content is the content that will be most pervasive, most watched on Instagram. More advertising formats. Look at what Instagram are doing. Look at what TikTok are doing. So more advertising formats, new opportunities for brands, and also think about the UGC stuff we spoke about right at the beginning. Monetization tools, more opportunities for creators. And it's the monetization that brings the creators to the platform, and creators bring the communities. Posting times, as I said, mornings, in the weekdays, all of those. Think about your posting times, because timing is everything in the world of social. Look, think about your hashtag volume. Don't feel you need to just do 20 hashtags and stuff in however many you need. Think about 3 to 6 well-chosen hashtags seems to be the order of the day. And just thinking about the right platform mix to target your audience, think about where the demographics are, what platforms are strongest there to help kind of reorientate or reinforce our strategy. And with that, we are done. So back to you in the studio, Joanne.
Thank you, Andy. Honest to goodness, when you think that the social networks can't reorientate themselves anymore, they just do. I feel like the battle lines are drawn every month when you give us the updates, because everybody seems to be watching everybody else's back and to create the new innovation. So I have a couple of my favorite takeaways from this month. I'm going to start with at the end. The WhatsApp communities, I think, are going to be really good for government and public sector. They have communities that they need to speak to, but they're so nervous about WhatsApp. And we know that in the government space, phones and WhatsApp conversations are what we call FOIable. So a journalist can request under the Freedom of Information Act all correspondence from phones and WhatsApp. So that's why government are so nervous about having, conversations in WhatsApp, because a journalist is entitled to it on behalf of the public. But I will watch with interest and see how they build out the community space and what level of controls, because you said that, you called that out, more control for the WhatsApp host, because they are a minefield, Andy. You kind of joked about, the WhatsApp group hosts, and, we're all in WhatsApp groups. But I was speaking to a social media legal expert on my podcast about 4 months ago. And she said that it's really dangerous to be part of WhatsApp groups, even if you're not saying something that might be used in a court of law. But if you share it, you're then kind of part of the problem. But anyway, I'm not going to go down that black hole, but I just am super cautious about WhatsApp for many, many reasons. But suffice to say, I'm sure WhatsApp realize this, and let's see what they do around moderation or, blocking particular words or whatever. But that one I thought would be interesting. Can we just talk about Elon for a minute and the Twitter takeover? We know it has to go through all the legal business things and go to the board and all of that good stuff. But you asked the question on LinkedIn, right? And you asked your community, hey, what do we think about Elon's takeover? And he loves Twitter. I mean, his tweets in the recent days have been hilarious. Like, he was talking about, free speech being the antidote to something, and, people were coming out of the woodwork. But we don't really know what he's going to do. I think you're right. He's going to throw money, but like, what's it going to do for the world of media and PR? And then I'm thinking about politics and all of that stuff. I mean,
Yeah, that bit is it's a massive potential minefield. I think the issue, like I said in my LinkedIn post, like social media is our culture, right? It isn't like, we go to a certain platform to be different, to vent and, to not be who we are. I mean, the fabric of our culture is in social media. So these platforms, by extension, are responsible for trying somehow to moderate our culture. And there's still that phenomena that we would still say things online that we wouldn't say in person. And how on earth you can control that so that minority groups don't feel marginalized, hate speech doesn't triumph. Yeah, I mean, these platforms don't want to do any of that stuff. They just want to build good features. I heard there's a brilliant Twitter thread where the founder of Reddit went off on an absolute Twitter storm about this. He's like, because obviously being the founder of Reddit, he saw firsthand. He was like, he said Reddit broke him as an individual because of all of this stuff. I'm like, how on earth do you try and
mm,
try and get the whole world to play nicely? You just can't. You absolutely can't. So Elon's come to Twitter going, yeah, it's fine. Just like forget, like we want far right, we want far left, whatever. It's the town square. The town square still has some form of, like, if it was a community debate, we still have some form of moderation to that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
when there isn't any moderation, I'm super nervous about that. Um, if it was just a case of like building features that people want, I think Elon is the perfect place for that, because he can build incredible things, get incredible people to do incredible things, you know. But Twitter's more complex than that.
yeah. And you know what? You make a really good point. You know, he talked about Twitter being the town hall. You related it back to civil society. And in civil society, we have justice systems and we have legislation, and that keeps everybody in order. We have law and order. On social media, it's often called the Wild West, and there's no law and order. And, you know, I watch the European institutions and what they're doing very, very closely. And the Digital Markets Act is going to go through Parliament this year. And I tell you what, I would predict potentially that more heavy duty legislation is going to come to bear on the social networks, because something needs to happen, and we know that technology moves faster than legislation. And I'm all for free speech. Hey, listen, I'm a former journalist, but I don't know. We're going down a dirty black hole if we don't try and control what is happening.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, yeah, it's a really good point, Joanne. I'd agree with that legislation piece. It has to be. It has to. That can be the only way, where there's some form of consequence for
Hmm.
um, being out of line. Because having your views and expressing your views in a balanced way is absolutely brilliant, because Twitter's incredible for hearing other people's perspectives on matters. But it's the bit that happens when people don't agree and don't feel like they want to have an intelligent conversation around it, and it just ends up being hate speech. And then, we know we don't want to go down here, but all of the negative side effects of social media. So the only thing that could happen is if there was some form of consequence to it. So yeah, free speech comes with consequence. That really is
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, and even actually in Ireland, we have a new digital crime bill coming in, whereby abuse online will actually come with sentencing and penalty. So individual countries are probably looking at how they can try and circumvent it. And as Danny rightly says, moderation is the biggest challenge when it comes to social.
Mm.
Um, the other takeaway from this month's social media news for me is that the creativity required now to be a social media manager and a content creator, the bar has gone way up. And I'm just asking myself, you know, to myself and to my audience, like, who's the creator on your team? Because they need to have creativity in their bones and oozing out of their pores. Because, you know, you're looking at AOR coming into TikTok, the remixing being a fundamental engagement signal, but you need to be a scripter and you need to be almost like a producer for short form video, right?
Yeah, you do. And realistically, this we're getting to a point now that social media it it's proven its point into its impact in what it can do for businesses, right, and organizations and anything, right? So social media is the way that things spread, is the way that things get heard. So what I hope organizations, and they're going to need to get away from this, is get away from saying like, oh yeah, it's fine, we can do social media because we got a social media manager. And it's like, it's too much. It is too much for one person to do. You need a strategist for sure. But you also need people that are native to that platform, and people that spend their time and want to create for that platform. I'd spent like the perfect example of this is Duolingo, the language app on TikTok. Just have a look at them, and basically just got one employee that is dressed up as an owl all the time, which is their logo. And that has turned that business into a celebrity. No, they're not a public sector organization, but the fact is, like, that really is kind of the requirement now for social. It's the person who creates it, which I've forgotten the name. I've just called her the TikTok owl, the Duolingo owl rather. But she is a storyteller. She is a creator. It's native to her. It's what she does, and that is all she does. And whereas social media managers, if business has a luxury to even have a social media, usually it's like a marketer where social media is like, oh, chuck this out on social. And it's just like, if we can just get away from that, because we need people that are native to these platforms to operate within our organizations, because that is how word is spread. And the more that we can understand that, the better we'll be, because you can't master all of it. I spend my life talking about this and thinking about this. I'm only active on 2 channels, so we need people, we need resource, and that resource can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to be a seasonal marketer. It can be someone just out of uni, a college grad, whatever. It just needs to be someone that cares about these emerging platforms and is native to those and can think through the lens of these new platforms. It's all about mindset.
Yeah. Final takeaway for me, and actually we had this conversation yesterday. I had a group of radio professionals, so presenters, journalists, producers, in a class, and we were actually doing the module on TikTok. And I asked them, I said, so for those of you that are really active on TikTok and you are creating, why are you there versus other platforms? And are you as active on other platforms such as Instagram? And exclusively those that were active on TikTok said, no, I just do it on TikTok. I feel it's more authentic over there. Whereas Instagram feels as a little bit more contrived, whereas people are showing up in their pajamas or with no makeup on TikTok, and their storytelling. And when you were introducing us to Be Real, who needs another social network, but it just reminded me of that conversation. And I think it's so clever. You got 2 minutes a day, it's in the moment, and you take it or you don't. And I think that's another shift that we're seeing in the social landscape is we want more authenticity. And I know that's become a bit of a cliche word, but it's true, right? And Be Real is leaning into this opportunity.
Yeah, it's hard to say that word, because it's like it's overdone. Maybe we need another word that helps people
Be
understand it. But
real, Andy,
yeah,
be real.
be real. Yeah. So yeah, that it's not rocket science, but really that's all it comes down to. And that's why, going back to those well, the point I made a second ago, which is like, that's why those organizations need creators that are native to the platform, that can be real, and we have to let go and let other people be the faces of the organizations, because really the times of, like, your company page LinkedIn post, that's going to always diminish in importance over time, for sure. Things are moving on.
Okay, final question. If Be Real takes off, who's going to buy it? Somebody else snap it up.
Well, yeah, Facebook will be the first to try and buy it, and if they don't buy it, they'll just copy the features. So yeah, expect to see that feature be part of Instagram soon enough.
Yeah, you are spot on. You are spot on. Andy Lambert, that brings our year-long series of the Social Media News Show to an end. We started with Content Cal. You've now been acquired by Adobe. It's such an amazing story, a business story that you've grown. And if you're not following Andy on LinkedIn, connect with him. He will continue to do his monthly updates. You know how amazing they are. He just, the way you present it, the way you research it, Andy, and the way you deliver it is wonderful. So thanks for the last year. And I know we're not parting ways. We will always collaborate. We've known each other for 4 years. But thanks once again and continued success.
Thank you. And same to you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in over all of these months. And yeah, well, if you want more of it, if you can tolerate my voice, then you'll see me on LinkedIn. So see you soon.
Okay. Have a great Thursday, Andy. See you later.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. See ya.